So I'm back again. I just want to have a bit of a chat, only briefly, because I'm not going to dwell on this much. So people are commenting about they don't necessarily see the cashless debit card as the only issue or a big enough issue to vote for the Labor Party outright to stop it, because they don't see it as a big enough issue. It should be the biggest issue and is the biggest threat to Australians this country has ever seen. As for a policy, in regards to, and here we go again, what it takes away from the forced, third-party, controlled, income-managed person who is controlled by a private company who is not accountable to the Senate, not accountable to you, doesn't have to follow the banking code, doesn't have to follow the law, doesn't have to protect the card holder, right? Card holders have lost their rights in law. Okay? Okay? Rights in law. So I'm going to go through those rights again, because some people don't seem to grasp how big of an issue this is. Every Australian in this country is supposed to be protected under the rule of law and non-discrimination. That goes out the window for a person on a cashless debit card. Every person in Australia is supposed to be protected under the consumer law protections through ASIC. That's not the case for somebody on a cashless debit card. Indu has a nice little tidy letter of no action to protect them from any recourse from the damages that they cause people on the cashless debit card. When they fail to pay a bill and a person gets a default notice and an extra debt fee or whatever, Indu's not responsible for that. If they don't pay somebody's rent and somebody gets evicted, Indu is not responsible for that. The person has no legal recourse to be able to litigate against them for their losses or their damages to their financial credit history, their rental history, their lives, their health, their emotional and social impact on themselves and their children. There is no recourse. There is no protection. There is no oversight for the cashless debit card holder. No one is in their corner protecting their rights. Okay? They've lost their rights to privacy because all of their data is collected and sold to other countries without the person's consent. And Services Australia could just hand over all of your information to Indu and you can't do anything about it. Statutory rights. Statutory rights. The right to remain silent, non-disclosure. We don't take that away from a convicted criminal. So why is it okay to take it away from somebody who's receiving Social Security? They haven't committed a crime. They're not sitting in a prison cell with their statutory rights intact. They receive a legal payment that they're eligible from the government under law, which is their right as an Australian citizen to be able to apply for. All right? Autonomy. You lose the ability to make your own decisions because somebody else is controlling your money. Or should I say their money? Because now they own it, not you. So when there's problems, you can't do anything. They've got your hands tied, right? How they control your money controls where you live, what you eat, where you go, and what you can do. And what decisions you can and can't make for you, yourself, and your children and your partners. All right? This is a big threat. To be effectively sold to a private company, owned and controlled by them, because they control the money, so they control you, right? I can't understand why people can't think that this is a big threat to Australians. Freedoms. How can you have freedom to choose what you want and where you want to go or what you want to buy if someone else is making the choice for you? Dictating to you where you can go, what shop you can spend your money in, how much you can spend. And if you want to save some money and try and buy something secondhand and you need to access dollars that are locked up in their account, you have to make applications and beg for permission to do so. Excuse me? How much more do you want control? How much do you want? When I think of people who work for the dole on a cashless debit card, how much more slavery do you want in this country where a person has no control over their lives? They are literally sold to a private company for profits. And not only that, the initial down payment setup fee, $13,000 roughly. And then every month the government pays to keep people on the cashless debit card too. And then if by some slim chance you get off the card, the government keeps the account open. Scroll down my page. I've posted an article yesterday where a cardholder who's been off the card for 18 months or so suddenly found the portal is still open because she got a text message that someone was trying to access the account to take money out. Right? Shakira, I'll have a look at your comments in a minute, sweetie. Alright, I'm not ignoring you. The cashless debit card is a threat to a person's freedom, self-determination, their autonomy, their total well-being, their ability to be an autonomous human being in society. It excludes that person from being part of our society. How can this not be a threat? How can this not be a big enough issue that needs to be stood up and fought to stop? Why do some people think it's still okay to sell other Australians into state-sanctioned abuse, social economic apartheid? Why is that okay? I don't think it's okay. I am 53 years of age. I have never had a criminal record or broken the law, not that that's relevant anyway, right? Why should I be stripped of my Australian citizenship? That's my question. Why am I no longer worthy to be an Australian citizen? What is it to be an Australian citizen if the country that you're a citizen of is deciding that you're no longer worthy of having your legal rights and protections upheld under the law of that country, as should be every right of an Australian citizen? Shouldn't citizens all be protected under the same laws? And let's get on to the human rights breach. Article 9 UNSCHR is breached. Why? Why should any Australian support another Australian having their human rights breached? And I'm talking real human rights. Rights to social security, the rights of the child. Right? Rights to economic banking and trading. The rights to freedom of movement. The right to make your own decisions. Why is it some people cannot see how big this is? Because the government's managed to cover it up under the smoke screen of we're all drunks and alcoholics and we all smoke pot or whatever, you know. All right. You know, it is very difficult for people to get off the cashless debit card, and no matter what people do and what they jump through, statutory rights removed. Your right to privacy in this respect, when you turn around and say they want 2 years worth of your bank statements, right, to try and justify why they should let you off the card. That's where your statutory rights come in, because you can't say no. You can't turn around and say, no, that's my personal bank account. That's my personal information. You have to hand it over. Otherwise, you can't even get your application through the door for an opt-out. And then when you do, you'll get questioned. Well, what was that for? Or what was that for? It's none of their gone down business. Right? I had a card holder that had not used her card on principle because it was set up for her by a lady in the office without her consent. And she worked full time. But the money that accumulated in that card over a 2.5-year period was $35,000. And they wouldn't let her have it, and they wouldn't let her off the card. And they got upset because she redacted her bank statements because she didn't want them to see everything that she did. The second time they knocked her back, they got upset because she redacted the balance of her savings, because her attitude was, it's none of their business how much money I've got in savings. That's my personal bank account. Right? That's my bank account, my savings. All of her bills were up to date or in credit. She had no debt. One of the opt-out letters that they sent her claimed that she had not paid debt repayments. She had no debt. They made up lies. They tried to suggest that because she hadn't used the money on the card, which was her family tax benefits, her end-of-year supplements, her COVID supplements, etc., that she was neglecting her children. Of course, they had no proof of that, and child services were never sent to her property to assess that. They just made that up to keep her on the card. She took her appeals to the AAT tribunal, and within 10 minutes of being on the phone, the decision to keep her on the card was overruled. But they still stuffed her around because $35,000 is a lot of money, and they didn't want to release it overnight. So they stuffed her around for nearly 8 weeks before they finally released it. And they tried to say to her, oh, we might have to pay you back in installments. No. See, the money's held in a bigger account offshore. All right? And she said, no. AAT tribunal have overturned your crap lies, and I'm free to get off the card. Take me off the card. It took 8 weeks. And then they tried to negotiate to pay her back in installments of $35,000. They didn't win. She got her $35,000 within 24 hours. They didn't have a choice. This is a big threat. But it's not only that. It's a threat to our small businesses, markets, fates, fundraisers, the very structure of our society as a community, as an inclusive community. Because by segregating a class of people based on their income source, right, demonizing them within the communities means that they get bullied and excluded. You end up with kids being bullied, right? You end up with people needing mental health care, which they can't access. I wish people could understand the enormity and the danger that this card poses to the rights and freedoms of Australian citizens. Okay? To want to play around and say, oh, it's okay to have two-tier citizenship, where one level of citizens have protection under rule of law and non-discrimination, and the poorer, the vulnerable, the sick, the disabled, the aged, the carers, the university students, the youth, right, people who are poor, who weren't born with a silver spoon in their mouth, well, they can have lower citizenship status. In fact, we'll just take their rights away from them, right? These policies have been done before in the past. I'm not going to go any further with that comment. They've been used on peoples to segregate people in the past. It's a fascist policy. It leads one way. It is a risk to this country. If they can take a social security recipient's rights away under law, and they can take the human rights away under law, what other things can they take away at a whim? What other things can they deny you from at a whim? Once they've nibbled away, you don't have any legal protections and you don't have any human rights. And Pauline Hanson's screaming, if you're on welfare, you don't have any rights. That division has been made. You are now sitting outside the rule of law and non-discrimination. You are sitting outside the protections that every other Australian enjoys in this country for being a citizen. So what does that make you? Are you still an Australian citizen? What are you? Stand up for yourselves, people. Have some pride in who you are. Stand up for your kids. Stand up for your parents. This is a big issue. But on top of that, economically, it funnels the money that's supposed to circulate in our economy for this country through multinationals and out. Right? It funnels the money to the billionaires. Because the people can only spend in the approved businesses, right? For the billionaires. Wake up. Just wake up, please. For you guys out there that have doubts, any policy that strips the human rights, the legal protections, and segregates and discriminates and excludes Australians from being part of an inclusive society is a danger to our society. We are not cattle. We should not be up for sale for the highest bidder, for the biggest shareholders and their mates to make money off of. And that's what they're doing. All right? This to me is the number one thing. Because for people like me, it threatens my life. It threatens my ability to live in a normal way. And to be told by its supporters, you will just have to learn to live a different way. Why? Why am I a lesser person? Why is the fact I'm no longer valued as an Australian citizen? Because I'm not a productive unit anymore for the corporate sector. Right? So they found a way to commodify me, to make money off of me, because I'm no longer profitable. I can't produce under their GDP and what they want. I'm a human being. If cashless debit card comes to me, why are my international human rights and domestic human rights dissolved? Why are my consumer rights, my legal protections, my protections of my social security payment dissolved? Why is my statutory rights to privacy and non-disclosure dissolved? People, please, wake up. This is such a big issue. And if the LNP get back in with the support of everybody skimming votes off the top for UAP, One Nation, Australian Bossy, Gap Party, everybody skimming votes off the top. If LNP get back in, 6.6 million Australians are at risk of this happening to them. That is, what, nearly 20% of our population. Oh, and of course, anybody who is Aboriginal, instantly. Right? We've already seen how that plays out with the basics card. Nobody can answer why every Aboriginal that lives in Canberra is on a basics card. But Canberra is not a basics card site, and it's not a basics card, one of the 5 zones that's supposed to be outside of the Northern Territory. Nobody can answer why. Why are Aboriginals in Canberra all straight up on basics cards? We have to stop doing this to people. We've done it to Aboriginal people for 15 years with the basics card. This is worse. The basics card is run by the government. The cashless debit card is run by private corporate business that will not look after you. They don't care. They don't have welfare support services and workers. They're a funds transfer company. They deal in dollars. That's what their business is. Transferring dollars from one bank to another bank, to another bank, to another bank, and making sure that shareholders get their cut along the way. Okay? Anyway, guys, have a good day. I'm going to charge my phone. And there it is in a nutshell. See ya.